The situation in Rafah is on a knife's edge as airstrikes continue throughout southern Gaza. Over 1 million Palestinians, half of whom are children, have crowded in the Rafah Governate for shelter. We are actively engaged with all involved for the resumption of the entry of life-saving supplies, including desperately needed fuel, through Rafah and Kerem Shalom crossings. Meanwhile, our health partners tell us that all the key medical facilities in Rafah could soon become inaccessible or inoperable, including the only dialysis department still operating in Gaza. Around 100,000 Palestinians are moving north from Rafah, yet humanitarian partners have no tents or food stores left in South Gaza. A massive ground attack in Rafah would lead to an epic humanitarian disaster and pull the plug on our efforts to support people as famine looms. International humanitarian law is unequivocal. Civilians must be protected. But this visit comes at a very difficult time for the country. I extend my deepest condolences to all those affected by the devastating floods that have swept through Kenya and neighboring countries. The United Nations stands in solidarity with the Kenyan people. And we will continue working hand in hand to support government relief efforts in any way that we can. Africa could be a renewables giant. It is home to 30% of the minerals critical to renewables and 60% of the world's best solar resources. Yet, in this unfair world, in recent decades, it received just 2% of the investment in renewables. And too often, countries and communities with critical energy transition minerals are exploited and relegated to the bottom of the value chain. Others make the profits somewhere else. We are calling for developed countries to honor their promises on climate finance, including funding to help countries prepare for the worst of climate chaos, for significant contributions to the new Loss and Damage Fund, for action to reform the multilateral development banks so that finance flows to climate action, and for the G20 to lead efforts to slash emissions and accelerate a just global phase-out of fossil fuels. And I ask African leaders to support these efforts. And I urge all governments to create ambitious new national climate plans by next year. Plans that drive sustainable development, attract investment, and align with limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid the worst of climate chaos. Africa's fate rests on meeting that limit. I am particularly concerned about the ongoing war in Sudan, where we are witnessing indiscriminate attacks against civilians, grotesque sexual violence against women and girls, and humanitarians blocked, attacked, and killed. Close to 9 million people have fled their homes. And the World Food Programme warns that the window of time to prevent starvation in Darfur is closing rapidly. Violent clashes in El Fasher are preventing aid getting through. An attack on the city would have devastating consequences for civilians and would likely see the conflict tear across Darfur. I'm also very concerned by reports of escalating violence in North and South Kordofan and Al Jazeera states. I call on all parties to abide by international humanitarian law, protect civilians, and facilitate full and unrestricted humanitarian access. Ultimately, we know that there is no military solution to this conflict. We need an urgent, coordinated international effort to deliver a political process that can get Sudan back on track. Thank you very much. All the best. Goodbye.